Hello everyone, welcome to Bharath.Insights. Today I'm back with another interesting YouTube video for everyone who are going to attend their interviews specifically related to Power BI or any of the technology. Okay, so this video is really helpful for them to crack their interviews 9 out of 10 for sure. Okay, so watch till the end of this video. You note down all the pointers what I'm going to talk now, so you can able to implement the same kind of strategies in your actual interviews. You can able to negotiate with the interviewer and you can get obviously some better impact. Okay, so as from the start itself. Okay, so on this note, so let me introduce myself. I'm a Microsoft MVP. I have 8+ years of an experience and I'm also having 55,000 followers on LinkedIn, and I'm also a content creator. So I have already released several interview related stuff on my YouTube channel on this, specifically on Power BI. So most of the people have already cracked their jobs, and also if you are new to this channel, go check out my previous videos as well. So subscribe to my YouTube channel and switch on that bell icon. So without further delay, so let me go back to the content. So the default question for anyone is, hey boss, can you explain Power BI project which you have done recently? So I think most of you can relate. So this is a mandatory and the beginning question when you are attending an interview. Okay, so in my experience, so with this question itself, the kind of answers which you are adding to this particular question will decide whether you are selected in the interview or rejected in the interview. Okay, so when I'm hosting interviews in different platforms, okay, out of 10, hardly 1 or 2 people are getting selected and rest of the people are getting rejected because they are not stitching the story for this question. So it means everyone is going in their own methodology and they are not having some start story as well as the actual content, and they don't have an ending story for this. Okay, so do not worry. I in this video I bought some interesting concept. So basically, so while explaining your data analytics project, so with the help of this Power BI, so in your interview, focus on structuring your response effectively. So while highlighting your role, impact, technical expertise and all. So but there should be a sequence in explanation. Somebody directly starts with client appreciation, somebody directly starts with data sources, somebody directly starts with this is my problem, I have resolved this. But no, so there should be some flow to tackle this interview question. Okay, so now I'm going to talk on the particular interview, the flow kind of a pointers for this question. Okay, so I have divided basically, if you're touching all these 8 strategies or 8 pointers for this project in explanation, then you are in a positive, tone to move to the next kind of an interview questions for you. First and foremost step, what you need to explain for this, you have to talk about a project overview. Okay, basically you have to talk like what exactly the problem statement of this project and who is, the better client, what kind of domain. Basically you have to define the overview of the project, and it should be very reasonable and it cannot be like a more depth. Okay, so in the next moment I'll also be giving you what exactly you need to cover and what pointers you need to add as well. So first and foremost step, you need to start with a project overview. Okay, once you have done with the project overview, okay, as an you know as an interviewer, I'll expect what exactly your role and what is your contribution in this overall Power BI project. Okay, so once the project is over, you have to start your roles and responsibilities and what you have done in this project. That should be your second straightforward point, because interviewer will not have much time to dig all your project. So you yourself have to explain your role and what kind of contributions you have done in this project. Then in this flow you have to touch on data sources as well as kind of tech stack which you have used for completing this overall Power BI end-to-end project. So you have to touch upon from where your data source is coming, what kind of a tools the clients you have operated in this whole project. Let's say you can talk on Snowflake, you can talk on SQL Server Studios, SSMS, or else Oracle database. What kind of a database, like it's a flat file or an Excel file. All these data sources you have to use in this project explanation. Okay, so once with that scope, you have to talk the process, actual process and the methodology, like how exactly you have converted the client requirements into the actual process or actual implementation story of your tech stack. So this fourth strategy will give some of the better impact on this overall story, because that's where the interviewer would be more focused on, because your project may involve in some different process or a methodology. Similarly, my project or the client actual project may involve in different technology. So they would be more keen towards this story, what exactly, whether you have worked on basically some sample project, or you are really worked on some good technical or a complex project. So this fourth strategy will decide your success story of this entire interview. Then you can talk about the key features of this overall problem, like you can talk about the particular story behind of this project. Like I'll be talking more on the key features of you have implemented any particular DAX, okay, or you have implemented any auto refresh for this overall solution. So you can talk particular key solution. I'm giving you different kind of an example, but you have to sit before going to interviews. You have to sit with write down all your project architecture, write down all your project stories, and in a proper Excel or a Word or whatever it may be. So you will get different ideas what to keep in front, what to keep in the next. So you have to divide your story into this 8 strategies. So in order to do that, you have to recollect what exactly your project, what you have done in your project, what's your roles and responsibilities in that so and so. So that way you can able to decode this problem statement very easily. Then you also need to highlight few impacts as well as few results. Let's say, what is the end outcome of this project? Obviously you cannot like I have that my client have given this and I have delivered that, but you have to quantify your impact, quantify your result. I'll be showing you one examples in the later slides as well. So this sixth strategy is very much important in your project explanation. And then at the end of the day, you have to talk on very key learnings, like what after solving everything, the client appreciations you have to highlight. If in a one line statement you can highlight. Then future enhancement, which is very optional, but if I'm in your situation, I'll be adding this pointer. Yes, we have done this project and the project took over 6 months, and after the 6 months, once we submitted, and still we are submitting the project for around the 2 years of duration for enhancements and monitoring support as well. So in this way, if I'm adding that as an example, the client will think that, the interviewer will think that, okay, this candidate is also having an expertise in supporting and monitoring period as well. Okay, so my explanation obviously will vary, but you have to think and you can use this kind of an approach in your interview as well. Okay, so if you're watching this video till you can like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also comment down what kind of particular topic if which I want to explain for you. I'm happy to explain that as well. Okay, so for an explanation, I have talked about a project overview. Let's say, for example, what's the first step I talked about is a project overview. You can start with one liner about the project purpose. For example, I worked on a project to develop interactive Power BI dashboards for tracking sales performance, also consumer behavior insights. So if I'm giving this as a one line statement, as an interviewer, I'll be thinking that, okay, you're working on some sales related dashboard. Okay, so in the same way, what challenge, what exactly the problem which I'm going to solve. Example, the sales team lagged in real-time insights into sales trends, and which leading to delays in decision making. So I'm the Power BI developer. I'm going to implement one sales tracking performance and customer behavior insights. So this is a particularly a quick problem which is faced by the client. So as a project overview, in the beginning itself, you have to brief this as a first step, so that they would be more keen what you have done next. Okay, so on this note, then you have to highlight your roles and contribution. Let's say, for example, specific responsibilities. For example, you have to describe your role in the project. You cannot add like your entire team responsibility. You have to add your individual responsibilities. For example, I was responsible for gathering business requirements, creating ETL pipelines, designing dashboards, and ensuring data accuracy. So you can also mention like collaborative support. Like mention if you work with stakeholders, other analysts like data engineer or a data scientist you have worked. You can also add everything in your roles and responsibilities. So with this story, I'll be knowing that you're also good with gathering the client's requirements, and you're also good with building ETL pipelines, and you're also a good dashboard developer for ensuring all the data accuracy. So here I'm touching myself as an end-to-end developer. Okay, so until and unless if interviewer asks, he will not be knowing, correct? So in the first question itself, I'm briefing the interviewer that, okay, I'm good with all this stuff. Okay, so this is related to your roles and responsibility. And the next, with that explanation in your project actual stuff, you have to talk what kind of data sources and tools which you have used. So you might be worked on different data sources like Azure, Power BI, Snowflake, flat files, Oracle, whatever the data source you're working, it may be. So explain where exactly the data is coming to the client. Okay, the client is sharing you the credentials, and from client environment you are, you are pushing into your original zone and you are doing the actual work, or you are creating any pipelines or any stored procedures or whatever it may be you have done. So it should be meaningful. So for example, the data was sourced from Oracle databases, and also it have flat files like Excel and CSVs. So you have to mention here the data source size as well, like number of rows and number of columns, number of tables, everything you have to mention. Okay, so tools used, so what exactly the tools which you have used: Snowflake for data storage, SQL for data extraction, and Power BI for data visualization. So you have to touch multiple tool tech stack which you have done in this project. Okay, and next important stuff for you is a process actual methodologies. For example, how did you gather the requirements? Okay, data extraction and transformation process, you touch upon your ETL process, how you have done, and how did you created a data model in Power BI, and how did you created a data model. It maybe you have done in SQL itself, you have created dimension table, fact table separately, then you have imported into Power BI. So it's basically all about your complete architecture, how you have actually implemented in this project. Okay, dashboard development like KPIs, what KPIs you have used, filters, or any visualization, any custom visuals which you have done for your client. Okay, this is another crucial step, as I mentioned already. This step is very critical in your project interview. Okay, so you can also mention like what kind of challenges if you want to touch on, then any business transformations you have done in technical transformation, there you face a real challenge, then you add those pointers as well in this process or a methodology step. Then once the implementation is done, then you highlight few key features of your particular solution or a problem statement. Let's say highlight any unique or impactful aspects of your work. For example, in my case, I can highlight like this. So I have used few DAX functions for doing some advanced calculations. You can highlight what kind of a DAX function you have used, and then integration of RLS for user based access. So I have three regional level managers. For East I have used RLS, for West I have used RLS, for Central region I have used RLS. So this mechanism will avoid multi conflict in viewing the report. So each manager will have their own kind of a KPIs, and they can have their own decision making factors. And any optimization techniques you have improved in performing a better dashboard result. So any best practices which you have done in this overall solution you can talk down. So and any real-time data refresh setup, like what kind of a refresh setup which you have implemented, you can also talk on that in the feature section. So once that is done, most of the people will not highlight this impact, because as a business owner, I want to hire you in my company, correct? So obviously I'll expect the result factor, the quantification factor. So if you are highlighting this factor, which will give you add-on points in your interview in the next layers. So for example, once this project is done, I have reduced reporting time from 3 days to real-time availability. For example, before implementation, my client is used to taking consolidating all these reports for around 3 days. Now my client can able to get with real-time availability of this. Okay, then improved decision making speed by 40% through interactive dashboard. Earlier, it is taking a lot of like 1 day time, maybe more time it is for them to look forward. Now with this, the decision making factors are very quick, and they have saved a lot of amount of money as well. So if metrics are not available, at least try to describe some qualitative to impacts, like at least your client is satisfied, your client is appreciated, all that mechanism you have to highlight in this step. So at the end of the day, what kind of a learnings which you have got? So maybe you can highlight like what exactly you have learned from this overall project implementation. You can highlight that we have understood about the project architecture, project domain, basically because you're working on healthcare. So basically healthcare domain is new for you, but with this project now you are good with healthcare. Okay, and then any future enhancement, like suggest areas for improvements or features you would add in the future if you had more time. Let's say the actual project scope is around 6 months, but you are giving the support till 1 year of period or 2 years of period. You have to explain that to the clients as well. So overall story, this entire structure, obviously it should be meaningful, and you have to stitch your own stories, or you can use my pointers as well. Now coming back to the actual real-time explanation. Okay, so I have created this real-time explanation. You can also use this real-time explanation quick and short for your actual interviews. If you want this template, I want from you comment down comment down in this YouTube video what exactly you're understanding from this overall video, or if you're having any doubt you can mention that. I can DM you this overall explanation or this overall slides in your as a Google Drive. I can able to copy for you. Okay, so this is a quick real-time explanation for you. You can pause this video and you can go ahead with that. Okay, so next concept which I'm going to explain is very much crucial. So once this project explanation is over, okay, and I have got to know that you are some good candidate with better experience and all, my next strategy for you, from your overall project explanation, the interviewer will pick these questions for sure. So let's say project specific question, what kind of questions you are going to face and what kind of answers you have to add on. Challenges and solution, let's say what challenges did you face in this project and how did you overcome them. Okay, so if you want a detailed video on these challenges to explain, I'm planning anyway, but if you want, just put it in the comments. I'll try to make a detailed video for everyone. So you can highlight data modeling challenges, or you can highlight any Power Query or data cleaning challenges, or you can also highlight any DAX query related challenges and how did you overcome that. You want to highlight that factors, highlight in this interview. Can you describe a particularly complex problem you resolved during this project? This is obviously the follow-up question for you, because we as a recruiters, we as a hiring managers, obviously we'll ask a candidate how you are reactive to that proper situation. Okay, and in the impact, how did you measure the success of your dashboard? Obviously you have to highlight the results. Like earlier the refresh time was very huge, now we have reduced with less number of minutes, like very quick, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes or half an hour they can able to get quick updates. Okay, what feedback did you receive from stakeholders or end users? Ultimately at the end of the day, client has to be satisfied, right? So enhancements, you may get questions related to enhancement. Let's say if you are having the more features or the more time, so what kind of other implementation factors you can suggest to the clients. Okay, so this is related to project questions. Now if I talk about few technical related questions, okay, so data modeling is another important concept. So how did you design your data model in this overall Power BI architecture? So you should be ready in a position that number of fact tables, number of dimension table, what kind of a schema which you have done, how you have connected your fact table to dimension table, what kind of a relationship you have done, what is the cardinality, all that elements you have to explain. Okay, if you want a detailed video on this topic, let me know in the comments. I'll make a detailed video how you need to handle data modeling. So next question, like how did you handle relationships between two tables? Like did you encounter any many to many? So you have to explain with some real-time scenario where you'll be utilizing some child tables or bridging table. You can avoid this many to many. If you are in that situation, how do you streamline your data modeling and all? So next, you maybe take question like a DAX. Okay, so the story is good for me. What kind of a complex DAX formula which you have used in resolving this client, and how did you optimize this DAX calculation for improving the better performance of your Power BI dashboard? So these kind of questions again you would be facing. If you want a detailed video on DAX, just comment DAX. I can make you another interesting video for you. And next, ETL process. Obviously you as a Power BI developer, as an end-to-end developer, you have to be very good with this ETL process. What kind of a transmissions you have done in this Power Query, and if there obviously the client data will not be clean, right? So how did you handle all the missing and inconsistent data for you for your requirements? And data refresh and connectivity, in this the key questions which you may be getting it. How did you set up data refresh in Power BI? What kind of connections did you use, like direct query, import, or composite, and why? What is that? You have to give with an example, like why exactly you have used import mode, why exactly you have used direct query mode or a live connection mode. You should have a story behind that to explain in an interview. If you want, again, just comment this particular topic in the in this YouTube video. I can able to make one specific video for you. And the interesting fact, you would also be getting a questions related to business understanding. Let's say you may be mentioning that requirement gathering, correct? So how did you gather business requirements for the dashboard? Like what kind of number of meet you can also like mention, like we would be having a POC concept where I'll be sitting with a client for around 2 to 3 meetings, and I'd be understanding the current architecture of the client, and I will also be providing 2 to 3 different architecture solution, and along with the benefits, cost involved, and everything. So with that solution, obviously based on their needs, they can able to understand everything, and we will be freezing the solution to implement for further process. So what kind of questions did you ask stakeholders to understand their needs? Obviously you as an SME, you are as a client front face, you have to ask a lot of questions like their current problem architecture, number of users they want, and what could be the scope, scalability, everything you have to ask. So requirements gathering is another important factor. If you are a fresher or an experienced person, try to gather these pointers as well. And insights. So what were the key insights or trends revealed in your dash? Any patterns you have identified, any story you have identified, or any ups and downs you have identified, or any better results like a top or a bottom countries or a bottom sales you have identified. So you have to highlight all this. How did you work? How did your work help the business to make better decision? Like with this overall dashboard, what kind of better decision they are going to take as a kind of a business to mind. So how did you design a KPIs? Basically, this is another interesting question they'll be asking you for sure. How did you decide which KPIs to include in the dashboard? Because KPIs cannot be, you cannot keep multiple KPIs. So how did you decide based on the domains? Let's say if you're working for a financial condition domain, so what KPIs needed for the finance? If you're working for a supply chain, what supply chain KPIs? So if you want a detailed video, let me know. Just as a KPI, I'll make another video for you. So were there any conflicting requirements from stakeholders? How did you handle them? Obviously, when you're working on a project, you will be getting a lot of conflicts. So how do you handle those conflicts as well? So you have to handle all these business understanding questions as well. And if you are mentioning that you are a team player, if you're working with multiple CFTs, cross-functional teams, so you would also be facing these kind of questions like how did you work with other team members like data engineers and all? How did you coordinate basically? So because in my company also I'm having the similar role, you have to coordinate with others. So whether you're already you're having experience in that role or not, obviously I need to know. So how did you ensure that stakeholders understood and could use the dashboard effectively? See, in reality, let's say if you have developed 20 reports for them, out of 20 hardly like 5 to 10 reports are being used and consumed by the end users. So if it is not effective, okay, whatever the amount which we are keeping, the cost, the time, everything which are putting by the companies will not be useful, right? So here you have to make sure your users are very much easy to understand your whole dashboard and the proper documentation to be submitted. You also need to train your users on for a particular duration. So you have to add all these pointers when you're explaining this, collaboration effect. So what was your approach to gathering feedback and iterating your dashboard? Let's say you're working for one solution, you have to submit, again you have to get the feedback, you have to submit, again you have to get the feedback. So how do you maintain this approach with your client? So you have to add all these points again. Okay, so specifically you'll be getting few questions related to domain as I already covered. So another scenario based questions. Okay, I'm planning to make one detailed video anyway on this scenario based. If you want, again comment scenario, I'll try to note that. Let's say if your stakeholder wants a new KPI added tomorrow, so how do you handle that request? You don't have much time, but you have to handle submit that scenario very quickly. So how do you manage a situation where a report is showing incorrect data due to data source issues? So this is very common in reality. So how do you react to that, and how do you handle well in that interview matters? Okay, suppose the dashboard is slow for some users. What steps you obviously suggest to troubleshoot? You as a Power BI developer, you have to give them very effective and very quick visuals. So if it is taking more and much very huge time, obviously users will feel bored and they'll come back to you again. That so how do you during the development stage, what kind of a measures you would be taking, any proactive steps you would be taking? You have to touch on all these things. It's a broad subject. If you want on this, again I'm repeating, I'll make a specific video. Okay, so if you're watching till this end, subscribe to my YouTube channel and share with your friends and colleagues who are going to attend interviews. Okay, and I'll be posting a lot of videos. Okay, I need all your support for in this journey for pushing and uploading a lot of videos. So general questions like how do you keep your Power BI skills up to date? Obviously, because Power BI will release a monthly wise update. So you as an individual, how you're relative to technological changes, what's approach you use debugging issues in Power BI. Let's say if you are facing some issues in the DAX, are you good with Tableau Studio, or are you good with DAX Studio, or are you good with writing SQL queries for validating the data validation? So they'll ask you different approaches. So another question like, can you explain the difference between calculated column measures in Power BI and when? Okay, based on a scenario. So this is again in general. So in this structure, you would be facing a lot of questions. Okay, so I hope with this video, I believe that you have understood a lot of informative insights from my side on the explaining a concept called Power BI project in your interview. So If you are not understanding, just comment on this video. I'll be reading all your comments and I'll try to answer all your questions and also try to make an interesting video for everyone. Okay, so subscribe to my YouTube channel. It will motivate me to come back with a lot of other videos as well. Thank you so